The forest was silent. Too silent for a place that usually echoed with the whispers of life. The moon hung low, casting silver light through the thick trees. Deep in those shadows, something moved, fast, powerful, and angry. The pack was coming. Their paws pressed against the cold earth, their breath white in the air, and their eyes glowing with fury. For days, the wolves had searched for their missing cubs. They had sniffed every trail, crossed every river, and howled at every star. But the tiny scents always ended near one strange place, the edge of human territory. That night, their patience ended. The alpha, a massive grey wolf with scars across his muzzle, lifted his head and gave a sound that shook the forest. A deep, chilling howl of vengeance. The pack followed behind him, silent but determined. They knew what humans could do. They had seen traps, cages, and fire. The alpha had lost too much already. His heart beat with only one thought. If the humans had taken his young, he would make them pay. Miles away, at the edge of the forest, a small cabin stood in the dark. Its windows were dimly lit by the weak glow of a lantern. Inside, a young man lay on the floor, exhausted, his hands bruised and covered in dirt. Beside him, wrapped in an old blanket, were two small wolf cubs, breathing softly in their sleep. The boy's name was Liam. He had found the cubs 2 nights ago, trapped in an old metal snare. Their paws had been bleeding, and their cries had torn through the night like broken glass. Liam had risked everything to free them. He knew wolves were dangerous, but he couldn't leave them to die. He carried them home, fed them milk, and kept them warm against his chest when the fire went out. Now, as the night grew colder, the cubs slept peacefully on him. Their tiny bodies rose and fell with his breathing. Liam smiled faintly, unaware of the danger moving closer through the trees. The pack reached the cabin just before midnight. Their noses caught the scent instantly. The alpha's heart twisted. His cubs were alive. He could smell them clearly, mixed with the scent of a human. His fur rose, and a low growl rumbled in his chest. The others circled around, waiting for his signal. Inside, Liam stirred. His eyes fluttered open at the faint sound of paws crunching leaves. The fire had burned low, and the room felt colder. Something was wrong. He sat up slowly, careful not to wake the cubs. Then he heard it. A deep growl, close and heavy, right outside the door. His breath caught. He looked at the sleeping cubs, then at the old rifle leaning against the wall. His hands shook. He didn't want to hurt any animal, but he knew what was out there. The pack had come. Outside, the alpha stepped closer to the door. His yellow eyes glowed in the moonlight. He could hear the steady heartbeat of the human inside. He could hear the soft whimpers of his cubs. They were so close, he could almost touch them. But why weren't they crying? Why weren't they afraid? The alpha hesitated, his ears twitching. The wind shifted slightly, carrying a strange smell. Not fear, not blood. Warmth, safety. The scent of the cubs was calm, peaceful. The alpha had never smelled anything like it before. Inside, Liam whispered softly, trying to calm his own fear. "It's okay. I won't let anything happen to you," he said to the cubs. His voice was gentle, trembling, but full of care. The pack waited outside, their muscles tense. They expected the alpha to break the door down, to take back what was his. But the alpha didn't move. His instincts screamed for him to attack. Yet something inside him was confused. He could feel the bond between his cubs and the human. The youngest wolf in the pack growled impatiently. The alpha silenced him with a glare. He stepped forward, sniffed the air again, and finally pressed his paw against the wooden door. The soft creak echoed through the night. Liam froze. His eyes locked on the door. He could see the shadow of the alpha through the thin wood. His heart pounded so hard it felt like the whole cabin could hear it. The cubs stirred, opening their small eyes. One of them gave a tiny yawn, then crawled closer to Liam, resting its head on his chest again. The other did the same. The human and the cubs, side by side, under the faint light of the lantern. It was a picture the alpha never expected to see. Something inside him shifted. The rage that had driven him for days started to fade, replaced by something he couldn't name. Confusion, curiosity, maybe even a small spark of trust. But the others behind him didn't share that calm. They were restless, ready to fight. The beta growled low, a warning to attack. The alpha turned his head slightly, his golden eyes full of warning. Not yet. Liam reached for the door, trembling. He didn't know what would happen when he opened it, but he couldn't hide forever. He took a deep breath, looked down at the sleeping cubs, and whispered, "Whatever happens, stay silent."
The wooden door opened slowly with a soft creak that echoed into the cold morning air. Liam's heart pounded so hard he could barely breathe. His hand trembled on the doorknob, and for a moment, he thought his knees might give out. As the door opened wider, the sharp scent of the wild filled the room. Earth, rain, and something powerful. Something alive. Standing in front of him was the alpha. Taller than any wolf Liam had ever seen, his fur shimmered like steel under the pale light of dawn. His eyes, golden, sharp, and full of storm, locked onto Liam's. Behind him, the rest of the pack waited, their bodies low, ready to attack at a single growl. For several seconds, no one moved. The air between them was heavy, thick with fear and uncertainty. Liam swallowed hard. He didn't raise the rifle, didn't step back. He just stood there, frozen, while the cubs behind him made soft sounds, half awake, unaware of what was happening. The alpha tilted his head slightly. His sharp nose twitched as he breathed in the scent of the cabin, wood smoke, human sweat, milk, and the warm, gentle scent of his own cubs. His gaze shifted past Liam's trembling figure to the small shapes curled up on the blanket. For a second, the beast inside him softened. The cubs stirred again, blinking open their bright little eyes. When they saw the shadow of the alpha, they whimpered, not out of fear, but with recognition. One gave a tiny bark, a sound that made the alpha's ears twitch and his heart ache. Liam slowly stepped aside, giving the wolves a clear view of the cubs. "They're safe," he said softly, though his voice shook. "I didn't hurt them. I found them, trapped. I just wanted to help." The alpha didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. The human's voice was not filled with fear or aggression. It was calm, pleading, almost protective. Still, instinct warned him not to trust too easily. Behind the alpha, the beta snarled, taking a step forward. His fur stood on end, and his teeth flashed in the early light. The pack was restless. They didn't care for explanations or kindness. To them, a human was still an enemy. The alpha let out a low, commanding growl, and the beta stopped immediately. His authority was absolute. The forest itself seemed to obey that sound. Liam felt the vibration of that growl in his chest. It wasn't just power. It was something ancient, something wise. He could feel that this creature wasn't just a beast. It was a leader, a father. The alpha slowly stepped closer to the doorway. Liam didn't move. The wolf's eyes flicked between the human's face and the cubs again. Then, with careful steps, the alpha crossed the threshold into the small cabin. The pack outside tensed, but none dared follow until their leader gave permission. Liam stood still as stone. Every instinct told him to run, to shut the door, to grab the rifle. But his heart whispered something else. The cubs gave small whines of joy and crawled toward the alpha, their tiny tails wagging. One nuzzled his leg, the other tried to climb his paw. The alpha lowered his great head, touching each of them gently with his nose. It was a moment of quiet reunion, father and children safe again. His chest rumbled with a low, warm sound that was almost like a purr. Liam's fear began to fade, replaced by awe. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. This was nature, raw and beautiful. The bond between the wolves was deeper than he'd ever imagined. But the peace didn't last long. The beta, impatient and angry, growled again from outside. He didn't understand why the alpha hadn't attacked yet. He thought the human had bewitched their leader. He barked loudly, snapping at the air. The rest of the pack began to stir. The alpha lifted his head and gave a warning snarl that echoed through the forest. The noise silenced the others instantly, but the tension remained. The beta took a step back, baring his teeth, his pride wounded. Liam glanced toward the open door. He could see the eyes of at least 5 more wolves watching him from the shadows. He whispered under his breath, "Please, don't let them come in." The alpha turned back toward Liam. Their eyes met again, man and beast, both unsure what to do next. Liam slowly knelt down, his hand shaking, and reached for a small bowl near the cubs. It was filled with milk. He pushed it gently toward the alpha. "They were hungry," he said softly. "That's all I had." The alpha didn't drink. Instead, he lowered his head and sniffed the bowl, then looked at the cubs again. The smell told him everything. The human had fed them, cared for them, and kept them alive. Something deep within the alpha shifted again. He no longer saw an enemy standing before him. He saw a strange creature who had saved his family. But just as calm began to settle, a sharp noise broke the silence. From the woods came the crack of a gunshot, distant, but close enough to make the pack jump. A bullet hit a tree near,